All right, ladies, thank you so much for showing up this morning on a Tuesday. We have an amazing speaker, Arnauld Nakaha, who is a Senior Executive Director here at Beachbody. But most importantly, I will say when it comes to leadership development, he is by far one of the absolute best. So I'm not going to take any more time than that. If you don't mind, Arnauld, go ahead and you can get this call started.
Excellent. Hey, thank you, Britt, and thanks for having me. Good to see some familiar faces. Hey, Christine, how are you? Teresa, who else? I see Rhonda Race is on, Cozy, who just came back from NLC. Great to see all of you. So I thought I'd take the next few minutes per Brittany's request to talk leadership. And specifically what I want to talk about is I want to address you as CEOs of your own business. I think that this is the cream of the crop, in the region, and you guys have proven yourselves time and time again. What I thought I would do is give you a perspective, sort of a CEO perspective, and hopefully equip you with things that you can share with your team. Right? So this is more going to be a train the trainer kind of deal. This is not me training you. I think you get plenty of incredible training and mentorship and support and coaching from Britt and all of you from what I hear. What I want to talk about is the 4 phases of a company, okay? And so you want to look at your business, Vicky and Julianne and, Missy, as your own business. And so I want to talk to you about the 4 phases that you've probably experienced. Maybe you haven't written it down and you haven't taken a step back to understand, but it's important to understand those stages, not only for you to verbalize and understand, but to also, as you have coaches come through your business, be able to explain it to them, be able to explain how they move from phase to phase, and then be able to also explain how your business, right, your individual business and the phase that it's going in doesn't need to be going through the same phase as the company you're associated with, the company being Beachbody, okay? So you'll want to take some notes, and then if there's questions, please, write them down. But mostly what I want you guys to think about is, as I share these stages of your business, what have you done to move from phase to phase? And I've got some ideas that I want to share with you on how you move from phase to phase. Most probably all of you on this call have been through all phases. Maybe some of you are coming up in those phases, but I guarantee you have a lot of coaches in these phases, okay? So let's start with the first phase, and this is the phases that a company goes through. And for those of you that are just jumping in and we're watching the recording. So the first phase that a company goes through is called formulation. Okay, this is where the company is formulating, its policies and procedures, its products, its business model, its vision. They're trying to figure out literally who they want to be when they grow up. They're trying to figure out who they want to attract, the kind of business they want to build. Do we want to build a product-focused business, or do we want to build sort of a business-focused business, or do we want to kind of be a hybrid? If you take a look at Team Beachbody, those years were basically when we started back in 2007, where we gathered about 30 people and we said, okay, who are we going to be, and what do you want to do with this gift, right, that you have in front of you? Now, this formulation phase, I'll tell you, and you guys know the stats, more than 90% of companies fail. In these, like, if there's 100 that start, there's only 10 companies that keep going. Okay, and this is the formulation phase where they're formulating, and it could be for a variety of reasons, right? And as I'm sharing this, I hope you're thinking about your own business, and where it's at and where some of your people are at, because I guarantee every single one of you want to find another Ashley and another Cassidy and another, Z and another Virginia. That's who you're looking for, right? And so it's important to describe this to them business to business, so they understand it. And it could be, multiple reasons that they fail. It could be a lack of funding. It could be associated yourself with the wrong scientific advisory board that points you that way when you should be focused on this. That could be the wrong business plan that you put together. That could be the wrong business partner, right? That you start with, the wrong co-founder, the wrong leadership. There's so many things. And the fact that we've gone through that phase, it puts you in the top 10%, unfortunately, right? It puts you in the top 10% of companies, right, worldwide. And so that's the formulation phase. As you're talking to your coaches, this formulation phase means, as it relates to your coaches, is who are they wanting to attract, right? This is what you guys call, finding your avatar. This is sort of finding your target market, figuring out where you're building from, right? You could build on Facebook, or you could be on Instagram, or actually I was talking to Z, she left NLC. She's a LinkedIn expert. This is where you figure out where you're playing at, right? What's your sandbox, and who are you going to focus on? It's not formulaic. It's more experimental, right? You go out there and you try some things, and you post your before and after. You share your progress, you share your income, and all of a sudden, people start coming to you, and people start asking you what you're doing, right? So this is the formulation phase, a very tricky phase. As your coaches get started, right? So that's the first phase. The second phase is called the concentration phase. Okay. Concentration. You can call it the focus phase. So here is what happens during this phase. In this phase, the company goes, okay, we know who we are. We're going to concentrate on one thing. That's when Shakeology comes about, right? This is where we go, we're putting all our eggs in this basket. This is how it's going to, this is the formula. This is what works for us. This is who we want to be. And you have to be unequivocal about the type of person you're wanting to attract, right? You know who you want to attract, you know who you don't want to attract, but you're also not making excuses about the product and the programs that you have, right? And it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of trial and error. To give you an example, from a program phase, we spent millions, and you guys have heard the story. We spent millions on P90X because we were very sure this is where we wanted to go, and this is the kind of customer we wanted to attract, someone that is not afraid to work hard in their own home, right? And when you go through this concentration phase, there's going to be the appearance that there's some people that you're moving aside, where really what's happening is you're actually concentrating, you're getting better at what you're doing, but you're having to let go of some things. And this is a phase that is very difficult. Again, every phase is difficult. This is a business, right? This is not for the faint of heart. But in this phase, particularly for those that start popping, right? Like you look at popcorn in a microwave, it starts popping. A few of your coaches will go, oh, I'm having success, Breezy. Should I just spread myself all over the place, or should I just focus on a few things? And this is where the concentration needs to happen. This is where that concentration becomes the force multiplier. But you have to be willing to let go of some things, right? And by the way, letting go of some things will probably not be the most popular decision, right? P90X bars, Activate. I mean, the list goes on of things that we had to let go of to become the very best at what we did and what we produced, which was Shakeology, right? So in this concentration phase is you guys are looking at your business and there's pockets of growth, right? It's not like all over the place, but there's like little pockets of growth there and there in this concentration phase where things are starting to connect. You're not the only one that's building the business, right? You've got a couple people that have gotten in, a couple people that get to Success Club 5, maybe some that get to Emerald, get to Diamond, other than your best friend, sister, spouse, right? It's like, wow, that's like major, right? That's like a major hurdle when it's someone other than yourself that starts building the business. This is a concentration phase where, again, It's still in pockets. It's not all over the place, but it's in pockets of growth, right? So that's the concentration phase. The next phase now, this is now an incredible phase, is the momentum phase, pardon me, okay? Momentum phase. So formulation, concentration, momentum. Okay, so we all know what momentum feels like. If you've been there, you understand exactly what it means. It means that there is multiple generations of activity and growth beyond that first generation, right? It's beyond that first generation. It's now looking at 2-3 generations. Let me debunk some things here. During that momentum phase, okay? During that momentum phase, you're looking at your news feed and there's transformations galore. There is incredible advancements happening, right? There's new coaches being introduced in your team page every single week, right? In this momentum stage, your paycheck, your income, is not actually the barometer of your success. Because in this momentum phase, you get to a point, like, if this is your leadership lid, okay? Let's just talk leadership lid. If this is your leadership lid, in terms of the leader that you are, sometimes your paycheck is like up here. Just because there's so much momentum, it just goes right above, the leadership lid. And the size of your income doesn't equate to the size and the influence of your leadership. But it feels great because there's everybody in momentum. People are hitting Success Club 5, emeralds popping, diamonds popping, all kinds of great things happening. Momentum, and you can mark this down, and this is something, again, you have to share this with your people. Momentum is the hardest to gain. Momentum is the hardest to gain. And guess what? The easiest to lose. Is the hardest one to gain, but the easiest to lose. See, what happens is because it just kind of goes right above your leadership lid, all of a sudden, and listen, we're all human beings. When things are going incredibly well, what happens is we go, all right, I've worked hard enough. Let me just relax for a little bit. Let me just lay back and let the people, let me get out of the way. Let me, let my coaches go and let them just do things, right? You're gauging your success based on your income. You're not gauging your success based on the activity that is happening. And we know that. You guys talk consistency until you're blue in the face to your coaches. That's what you say. But in that momentum phase, the worst thing you could do is to then sit back. Because in that momentum phase, because you have so much energy pumping through and you're creating so many stories, right? The function of leadership is really just creating more stories, more success. But because it gets to a point where it's so far above your leadership lid and everything that you've done, you go, well, it must be me. Let's be frank here. Like I'm going to be just frank. It must be me. And if it is you, then you ought to just stay close to that action, right? And so in that momentum phase is where you talking to your leaders and mentoring your coaches is going to be critical, right? Because you guys have been in momentum phase, right? You've tasted what momentum feels like. And so you've got to catch those leaders once they start going from concentration, they've worked so hard, to momentum. You've got to catch them and you've got to help them. Let me pause right there. The phases that you're going through have nothing to do with the phases that a company is going through. We've got to mark this down. The phases that you're going through yourself are completely different than the phase a company, i.e. Team Beachbody, might be going through. You've got to detach yourself from that. Because every single month and every single year, there's new leadership that is created, right? If you were to attach your success based on whatever phase the company is going through, then that wouldn't be a game worth playing, would it? And the mistake that I see some people do, just because we're on these devices all the time, we're on social media, you start looking left and right, you start listening, and before you know it, you go, oh, we must be in that concentration phase, or we must be in momentum, or we must be going back to formulation. Like, what you're going through is completely separate, and you've got to detach yourself from that, right? Because when we were in formulation as a company, there's some people that were going through momentum. And when we were in momentum, there's some people that were still going through formulation and concentration, and vice versa, right? Every business has a cycle, and you've got to make sure that you understand the cycles, but B, you own that cycle. That you're not, at the whims of whatever is happening to business B, C, D, or the company itself. And you've got to, because if ultimately you're the CEO of your own business, it's super important that you own that part, right? And the function of leadership, again, is going to be creating those stories, right? Here's a rub, and here is where it's challenging for you, is that the harvest never looks like the seed, right? The harvest never looks like the seed. And when your coaches are going through formulation and planting those seeds, and some of those seeds start sprouting through concentration, they're going, for the amount of work that I've put in, the harvest is just not making sense, right? That connection happens by you not only just, uplifting them, but showing them where this is going, explaining to them the phases of the business, right? Many times I think that we resort to just excitement. You know what, you keep going and it's going to be there. You see what happened to, to Diana and to Brooke or to Christy. No, I think excitement is one thing, but you've got to lay the vision and show them where this is headed, right? And I think that to keep it as simple as possible, these phases will show them where they're headed. But that takes planting the seeds. That takes continuous planting of the seeds, right? So that's momentum. A few things that you want to watch for, okay, as you're in momentum. The sign of a healthy business. The sign of a healthy business, like I said, is just not your income. You've got to start looking at the activity that is happening in your business, right? So you guys can look at it as sneak peeks. Like, how many sneak peeks are happening within your business, right? How many sneak peeks? I spoke to a coach that I work with, and I started digging into what she actually was doing, and I found out that she's running one sneak peek every other week. And I said, well, there's a couple things you can do. You can increase activity, okay, and do it every week and do it for the next 3 months. But more importantly, you've got to teach your coaches to do that so that they do that independent of you doing it or not. See, what we found out was her coaches were scared to do sneak peeks. So they would invite to that one sneak peek that happened every other week. And in between those 2 weeks, nothing was happening. They were doing the follow-ups and all that, but nothing of massive scale was happening, right? And for her business, massive meant, 10 to 15 people presenting the plan, presenting the opportunity, right? And so you've got to look at that. A healthy business is how many are in activity, not just income. We've got to stop looking at just income as a gauge of success, because income, like I said, it will catch up to the activity that you're doing right now. Let's see. Okay. And let's talk about cycles. Okay. And I'll share the last phase here. So if you're thinking about cycles, let's just use an example outside of business, right? So you look at real estate, for instance, right? It went crazy, 05, 06, 07, 08, right? It went through formulation, concentration, momentum, right? And people were just signing up for loans that they couldn't afford, but they're like just euphoric. They have a heartbeat, they get a loan, they buy a $400,000 home, and they're making $25,000 a year. Sorry, that math doesn't work, right? And the same thing happens with your business, where people just go and they just hit a lucky break. Like they find their sister, and their sister is I don't know, a Mary Kay representative that is tired of hosting parties, and boom, they take off. And before you know it, they just rely on that one thing, and they think that thing is going to stay on forever, and boom, then the cliff happens, right? So 2008 happens, and then he just kind of goes, and then guess what? He recovers again, right? And so right now, we're due for another correction, but so far people are just going as if nothing is going to happen. It's like, knock on wood, cross your fingers, hopefully nothing happens. We've got to stop going and building our businesses based on chance. Like that does not work. It's not enough to rely on just good fortune, right? We've got to start owning our businesses. And the challenge of leadership, the challenge of you guys, is then going to your coaches and saying, guess what? This is a real business. You might still be in formulation. I get it. I don't want to overwhelm you with phases of the business, but this is where you're going, right? As someone that has a great leader that I work with, Jeff Allen, Carl Deichler, it's important for me to see those phases, right? It's important. And you're going to attract some incredible coaches. You have to show them those phases so they understand the vision. It's not enough to just tell them about sort of like the next thing, right? Success Club 5. You want to build a legacy business, you've got to find legacy leaders, right? That's who you need to find. And those take a little bit of time. What is another example? What is it? All I could hear about during our holiday break at Christmas was what? Maybe some of you heard about it. Bitcoin. That's all I could hear about. Like everybody was all of a sudden an expert on Bitcoin. And it's like, oh yeah, you got to get in. You've got to do this thing. You've got to put all your entire life savings in this. And I'm like, what does blockchain mean? Like, do you understand what that means? And how does that work? And is Bitcoin a currency that I can use? All these questions, no answers, just a lot of excitement. It's chance. It's my fortune. It's my time. Guess what happens? Bitcoin hits 20,000 US dollars. You guys know what happened after that. He dipped down to like, what, 5,000, 6,000, right? Dipped down, crashed, right? And so if you're someone that understands business having cycles, everybody, all the weak hands, as he was going down, just started selling. They're like, okay, I'm out of here. This is not working. This is not working anymore. You know, you must be the end. You must be the very end, right? And guess what happened? They lost money. And guess what's happening now? It's rebounding again, right? And there's other things that are starting to pop. Business has cycles. Just because you're in a specific phase of the business doesn't mean that everybody else is going through that. Doesn't mean that the company is going through that, and vice versa, right? Okay, fourth phase. Fourth phase is the stability phase. Fourth phase is the stability phase, okay? In this phase, your residual income now is stable, right? Your growth is marginal, right? 2 to 3%, 2 to 5%, right? That's the stability phase, right? When things are just stable, you've got your group of leaders, you're securing your business, you've accomplished all your goals. And this is a good phase. But one of the things that happened during this phase is, again, you look at your news feed, it's not what it was, right? It's not all the rank advancements and all the new coach signups and all the new income, record months happening, right? And so that's the stability phase. Here's the thing. Through all those four phases, you can go back, you can go forward, you can decide where you are, right? And so if we talk about leadership, and I call it a burden act, it's a responsibility, right? It's a responsibility that you have. The burden of leadership is to create enough success stories and to make sure that there is enough activity that you're doing and that you're leading and that is duplicating within your organizations, right? Wherever you are right now, you can move to the next phase. You guys understand this. We're not going to go into those mechanics, but it is important to make sure that as you look at this year, And I'm sure that Britt, and Doug have shared with you sort of the lay of the land for the year. We know that those 2-3 quarters of the year are uber important, right? That's where like you can get a bunch of people into formulation, and then people start hitting their stride, in March and April, and that's when the concentration can happen, right? And then the momentum, it all depends on what they do ultimately. It all depends. It comes down to the activity that they do. And I think it is so important to make sure that you lay that out for them, that you have a plan for them, and then you continuously lead by example. At the end of the day, it could be very easy to hang back when you're in momentum. It could be also very easy when you're in stability to enjoy the stability. Why not? I've worked hard for this, right? I've worked super hard for this. Why not just enjoy the stability? But I think the people that you're robbing are the people that are coming in that are just in formulation phase, that are looking at that concentration and momentum, that want to experience what you experience, right? And I think that as you continue leading by example, as you truly understand these phases and treat this as a business, there's no question that there will be more Brittany Powers created, and more Christy Lyons and Cozy's and Missy and Whitney's created. But that does not happen organically. That does not happen by chance. You have to truly own your business, and I think that once you've done that, then you remove the emotions out of the question. Like, your emotions are not going to help you build this business. And this is sort of the harsh truth that you have to have the courage to have, the conversation that you have to have with your coaches. That your feelings don't really build your business. Like, how you feel about this does not build your business. But these are the 4 phases that you can't get away from. Like, this is where you are. Like, let's just take all the emotions out. Let's take out what is happening with business ABC. Let's focus on you and be the very best that you can be. Stay in that activity. Again, that seed, that harvest never looks like the seed. Stay in activity, keep planting. That's the only thing that you have control of. Anything else, you really don't have control of. So those are the 4 phases of business. I hope that this helps you guys as you hopefully takes, you look back at your business and you self-evaluate, right? Gary Vee talks about self-awareness all the time, saying, gosh, okay, I've got to self-evaluate, and I've got to be aware of where I am, and I've got to have the courage to then have that conversation with my people, knowing that I'm coming from a place of leading by example. So what I'd love for you guys to do, and I know that Britt, you probably have a message thread or a Facebook group or something, would be really discussing now, okay, I'm in this phase, what did you do to move to that phase? Or I've got these coaches in this phase, what did you do? And you'll find out a lot of it comes down to activity and, and consistency. So thanks for being on. If there's any questions, please ask them. But I think it's one of those things that are hopefully, will help you train your coaches and your leaders, and will help you become a better leader. So Britt, thanks for having me. I appreciate you having me, and think the world of all of you guys. And you know what? Leadership is not an easy thing. And so I have a lot of respect, tremendous amount of respect for what you guys do every day. So Britt, back to you.
Hey, Arnauld, that was amazing. Can we take 5 minutes and just answer some questions? Is that
Of
okay?
course.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
absolutely.
Because that was really, really, really good. But I want these ladies to be able to ask if they do have a question, because it's obviously blown up that they really like it. So who wants to ask? Does anybody, first of all, have a question? And if so, unmute yourself, please.
And let's make it, questions or honestly best practices. How are you moving your coaches from formulation to concentration or into momentum? How do you keep yourself outside of the comfort zone during the momentum phase, right? Okay, so I see a question here. Cassidy asked, do you feel there might be a best way to share this with our teams without overwhelming them? Great question. So this is a message for you, I would say, for your top tier leadership. so who I call a category 3 leader is someone that wants to be like you, Cassidy, and build a full-time business. He's willing to invest 15 to 20 hours a week into their business. I think that early in the game, right, as they get started in that formulation, they're sort of like throwing spaghetti to the wall and kind of seeing what sticks. And then they get into concentration. All you do and the kind of conversation you have with them is where you pull out the business activity tracker and talk to them about, okay, so keep doing this. I'm going to keep you into activity. And that's where you just then tell them at that stage that they're building towards momentum, right? So it's either a category 3 coach that right off the bat wants to understand the full vision and full spectrums, of what's available to them, or someone that has proven themselves, that's already in the concentration phase and, business is starting to pop. Great question. But Britt, if there is anything else, I mean, some of you have been in momentum. What did you do to maintain, keep yourself, sort of, outside of your comfort zone? What are you experiencing right now in this important, few months? We're in February and it's an important time as well. So, Britt, any other questions? Any questions that you have?
I have something to say.
Please. Yeah. Vicky, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much. You totally rock, by the way. Not that we all didn't already love you, but after this, it's freaking amazing. So one thing that I need to get back at, and you just totally lit the light bulb above my head, is being in the momentum phase. And I think back my first 3 years as a coach, I was so excited all the time. And I think that's how I stayed in the momentum phase. I always put my business came second compared to me being a challenger. And that's where I soared. And that's where I saw all my coaches soar, because we were always focusing on ourselves and getting amazing results and being able to share them, because you're more confident to talk about what you're doing and talk about Shakeology and talking about the products when they're actually working for you. But then when life happens, or when, your whole self goes on the back burner, or you become a diamond coach or a star diamond coach and you start micromanaging, and then your results go on the wayside, then your confidence starts going down the drain, and then you feel like you're lacking as a mentor and all this stuff. And so I think it's like the roller coaster. I'm sure we've all done this, where we have fallen off the wagon, or, we got great results. Like I was in the Shift Shop test group and I got amazing results. And then round 2 came and I'm like, oh, I could slack a little bit. I could do this and that. And I didn't get as good results my second round as I did my first. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm not being the best coach. I'm not being the best challenger. And I start doubting myself. And then it's like a trickle down effect to my coaches, because when they see their leader, their mentor, doubting themselves, then they start well, she's slacked, so maybe I can't give myself grace. And but I think just staying in the momentum phase, where you're excited about, 80-day obsession came out. I'm freaking excited again, because it's challenging as all get out, and it's hard, and the time nutrition and stuff, but it's exciting because it's working and you feel good, and you see this excitement with your challengers and your coaches. And I think that's really how you stay in momentum phase, is that, thank you, Christine. That I think that's how you stay in momentum, is you got to keep that excitement. You don't want to wake up Monday morning and you're like, oh God, I have to work out, or oh God, I have to invite today. It's finding the things that excite you about the business and staying as the best challenger and working on yourself continually, no matter what. So that's my
Absolutely. Brilliantly said. Actually, one of my notes, I didn't share them, was set yourself on fire so people come from afar. And you set yourself on fire so people can see that blaze, right? And I think you do exactly what Vicky said, is, you do the things that speak to you, and you keep feeding yourself as a leader, right? Because your glass can run on empty many, many times as a leader. And so take care of you first if you're going to take care of anybody else, but also don't all of a sudden put the CEO hat on and be all serious, and because it's unattainable. They see you and they go, okay, well, I'll be a customer. There's no way I can do what you do as a coach. So right on, Vicky, and congrats on your 80-day obsession journey. Way to go. Okay, Britt, I think we're up on the time. So really appreciate you guys. And I guess we'll see you at, in Cancun, Riviera Maya, or at Summit.
Thank you so much, Arnauld. Last thing I want to say, this just sets the tone of knowing your vision, your North Star, and letting your team know where you're at. So I love this. Take it to your team. Of course, I will share the replay, but I appreciate you all jumping on. Have an amazing day. Thanks, Arnauld.
Okay, bye, everyone.
See ya.